What's up, guys? So it is Saturday morning. Sorry I didn't post a video yesterday. Kept meaning to and just didn't happen. So, you know, I guess you're gonna have to forgive me, and I'm not perfect. As if you didn't know that already, though. I mean, seriously. So, excited about today. We got fine arts this morning. I got my Curvin shirt on. Boom. Curvin Brewington. For those who don't know who he is, you gotta check him out. CurvinMusic.com. He's an awesome hip-hop artist, and you'll love his music. I guarantee it. So today, I'm going to toss out a couple thoughts, some things that Paul said in Galatians. And this is something is like, when I read this verse, I was like, that's a bomb, because it's like the story of my life. You know. Because let's be honest, who likes growth? Nobody does. Who likes to have to admit that you're not good at, that you're not doing something the right way? I don't. I'm sure you don't. One of the worst things in the world is to have to admit that we're wrong. That's why so many marriages fall apart, is because people aren't willing to. It's why so many friendships end, is because too often we don't want to admit when we're wrong. And rather than admit when we're wrong, we'd rather break a relationship too many times. And it seems to be one of the hardest things I know constantly in marriage. That's one of the big things. Caitlin and I are always going back and forth, and we have a really, in my opinion, in her opinion, I guess in our opinion, we have a great marriage, but there's still times where we're in an argument, and both of us are stubborn as mules, and we'll go back and forth for hours on something. And finally, almost every time, one of us stops and says, okay, you're right, I'm sorry. And, you know, I would say this, I think it's pretty equal between the two of us. You know, I don't feel like I do it more than her, or she does it more than me. I feel like it's at a healthy balance. But the problem with it is that when we allow that to break up relationships and friendships, not being willing to say, you know what, I screwed this up and I'm sorry, my bad. You know, I've never been in a situation where I was 100% right, and I'll guarantee you haven't either. Every single disagreement has faults on both sides of that disagreement, and the problem is when you look at the other person's faults in that disagreement rather than our own. And so, in the same vein, that's kind of sidetracking, but to get back to this, what happened here is Paul had this great relationship with these Galatians. He had taught them and shared with them and mentored them and coached them and pastored them and all of these things. And it says this is Galatians 4:14. It says, what has happened to all of your joy? I can testify that if you could have done so, you would have torn out your eyes to give them to me. Okay, that's pretty gross. But then he goes to verse 16. Have I now become your enemy by telling you the truth? Now think about that. I want you to evaluate for a moment, because I have done this in my life where I've had to step back and say, okay, God's intentionally placed people in my life to speak the truth to me, to tell me what I need to hear about the way that I'm living, about how I'm doing what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And too many times I look back and realize that rather than fully love it and accept it, I almost resent it and start to push it away. It seems like that's what the Galatians were doing, as Paul was saying, hey, at one point you were so joyful over me that you would have given me anything. You would have done anything for me. And now all of a sudden, I've become your enemy because I told you the truth, because I told you what you didn't want to hear, because I showed you that you needed to adjust your life in these certain areas. And so today I just encourage us all to kind of take a step back, close our eyes and evaluate. How have we responded? God's intentionally placed people like Paul in our life to strengthen us, to challenge us, to push us, to show us that we need to adjust and change the things that we're doing in our life and the habits that we're living. How are we responding to those people? Are we receiving that with joy and thankfulness and gratitude for their role in our life? Or are they becoming our enemy? Purely because we don't want to have to admit that we're wrong. Your selfishness, my selfishness, our selfishness will be the #1 thing that destroys our growth with God and our relationship with God. Don't let it get in the way of who God wants you to be.